Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ. My goal is to meet every single person on the world, and that includes our guest today, Lori Horvik, an original founder of Theater B. You guys are in for a treat. We're going to talk about all of her moving, and I'm going to tell you about why I'm drinking a gallon of water every single day. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I, as of today, am giving up pop for as long as I can.
Whoa.
I've done this several other times in my life. And first of all, the thing I notice immediately is like it is so easy to shed weight and just get rid of like those extra couple LBs when you get rid of pop.
And if I can back up JJ here really quick, because yes, JJ loves his Diet Coke. But every time JJ has done a break from soda, he's stuck with it. Like I can burnish his dieting from diet soda bona fides. He sticks to it. So good for you, buddy. What caused this change?
Well, so for starters, I'm getting older, right?
Right.
You know, my dad died when he was 51. My grandfather, my dad's dad, died at 50. I turned 37 a couple months ago. And so it's just time that I start taking care of my body a little bit more. And the problem is that I fully believe that I am addicted to Diet Coke. I get angry when I can't get one. I need it to start my day, and I gotta break that habit again. And this is usually how I slow roll myself back into pop, where I say, I'm only going to drink Diet Coke when I go to the movies.
Yep, right.
But then I find myself like going to a movie just to see a movie and then getting a large, diet soda and then halfway through filling it up and drinking another one. That's ridiculous.
It's like malicious compliance, right? Like you're technically following the rule,
right?
But you're undoing the spirit of the rule, which that's happened to me many times. Every time I try to I've tried in the past to go off soda. My rule has always been I will only drink soda if I'm eating pizza, because pizza and soda, they go together, right? They're like peanut butter and jelly. But then all that means is that suddenly I'm eating a lot of pizza all the time.
Right. You just find ways to justify it. I've even done I'm only going to drink pop when I'm on vacation. Well, 24 cans of Diet Coke and 3 days later.
It's like I gotta get it all in. I'm on vacation.
Right. Be like, well, I'm in Wapaton. I'm on vacation.
Yeah, Saturdays are kind of a vacation, right? It's like a vacation from your work. I can totally drink some sodas today, 24 hours in a day.
So what I did is I said, you know what? I've really made it easy for me to consume more water. And that's what I want to do is I want to consume more water. And so I bought this 1 gallon jug that has motivational phrases on it, as well as a timeline to keep me accountable for the day. So nice. 7 a.m. Good morning. The line that it's right there means that it's a gallon. And by 9 a.m., I have to drink, it looks like probably like the equivalent of like a glass of water. Okay. And at 9 a.m., they say, you've got it. 11 a.m., remember your goal, apostrophe. 1 p.m., go for it. 3 p.m., keep drinking. 5 p.m., never give up. 7 p.m., almost finished. 9 p.m., you did it. Now, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm not reading these as motivational phrases. I almost am reading them as snarky phrases. So I feel like I need to continue drinking just to prove this bottle wrong. That I actually can do it. That I will go for it.
Mm-hmm.
It also, by the way, when you consume a gallon of water in a day, you are peeing so much more than you expected to pee. So much more. So
yeah, I mean, it's your body does not necessarily need that full gallon. It's nice to pass it through.
Right. And the goal is, of course, like your urine is a direct indicator of like your health at that moment, like finding the correct consistency.
Yeah, the color, the taste,
smell.
Of it. Once the taste of it, it's a little sour. You should probably. That's what you do, right? You taste it.
No, I save it for wounds. JJ, what's this empty bottle in here? Well, it's my urine bottle. I keep it in case I get a wound, but it's empty. Be like, I cut myself last night. Also for jellyfish attacks. You never know. So what I'm saying is, listeners of JJ Meets World, I'm trying something new this year, and I'm not calling it a New Year's resolution. I'm calling it just a chance for me to do something good for myself for a little while. And what's nice is because movie theaters, like they're not really releasing anything right now that makes me go, oh, I got to go see this on the big screen. It's really allowing me to keep away from some of those bounce backs. It's keeping me on the wagon.
A little tip to anyone trying to do this in the future: if you're trying to quit soda, don't get a job at a movie theater.
Oh God, right.
That's the absolute worst. JJ and I both worked at the Fargo Theater for a number of years, and thank God they were a Pepsi company. But the largest, what was that? Like almost a gallon. That giant cup of soda.
Yep.
And Pepsi's my jam when it comes to the sodas. Pepsi also just happens to be the most acidic soda that is out there. It like by an order of magnitude. I remember going to my dentist office and he had a chart of the level of acidity of, Coca-Cola and orange juice and all these other drinks. And Pepsi was like one stop up from battery acid.
I think it's funny that you were like, thank God the Fargo Theater was Pepsi, because I tried so hard to switch us over to Coca-Cola. When I was the concessions manager, I was like, that's all I want. I want that to be my legacy. That's why Coke is served here.
I was Pepsi Man before Pepsi Man was Pepsi Man.
Well, listen, this intro it has to do with water and consumption and absolutely nothing to do with our guest today, Lori Horvik.
Of our show, huh?
Lori Horvik completes of like a quest for us, though, because this will be the final final jewel in the crown of the Theater B Founders collection of JJ Meets World. We're gonna have to add that as a category now for people to click on. But what's exciting to me is Lori Horvik is somebody who I have a deep respect for. We've spoken to her husband, Scott. It's funny. Scott takes up a good portion of our conversation today. We talk about Scott directly. So he's the gateway drug into getting into Lori Horvik's inner psyche. We talk about acting techniques. We talk about bringing performances to stage. We talk about moving. This is just it's a fun episode, and I think this is be a great episode for commuters. So if you're commuting and listening to this episode, you've made the right choice, my friend. But let's not put any more roadblocks before we get to Lori Horvik. Here you go, everybody. Enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World.
JJ Meets World.
Welcome to JJ Meets World, Lori Horvik. How are you today, Lori?
I am excellent. Thanks, JJ. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I have to be the guy who admits I just creeped on the condo that you guys put up for sale because I wanted to see what your decorating looked like.
Oh, well, that is my selling a condo decorating. Not the we live here every day decorating.
Oh, I was going to say, because it looks super nice, but I don't know how I could keep up with all of that.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad, but yeah, very, very, very simplified. So we have stuff in storage and all that good stuff. But I'm learning that every time we downsize, it's like, oh yeah, I can do without that. I can do without that, and it's awesome. So,
are you and Scott ready to live in a tiny house yet?
No.
One more step.
I don't think we'll ever take that step. I think we would get a little too much on each other's nerves. I think I would bug him because I'd be just like,
Really?
"Don't do that! Don't do that!" Blah, 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 blah.
I'd say never, Lori. I could totally see you
Oh,
guys
shut up!
eventually.
I could see us in like a mobile home thing or like a RV and traveling around and doing stuff. But
There you
I
go.
don't know that one little place with 200 square feet would do us. I don't
We
know.
we
We
actually
wouldn't
have
fit
some.
our TV in there. We have
And
this monster TV that we bought by impulse, and so we can't ever do a tiny house.
I mean, I guess you could get rid of the bathroom and just get like a 5-gallon bucket.
Oh my! I guess.
You got to prioritize stuff. So I want to talk right off the bat because I think you have moved more than any other person I've ever known,
No,
and that
no.
intrigues me so much.
That is not true. My friend, and she'll admit it, so I can say it. Lori Koenig has moved way more than I ever have.
Oh, that's true. And she's had a lot of cross country moves recently.
Yeah,
Like that's
but
been
even
her
in
thing.
town, she'll admit it. Everybody gives me so much crap about that. I know.
Oh, I don't give you any crap at all because I will look around my house and I'll think, oh, I just long for a different yard or a different tree. Sometimes I just think, I wish my bedroom faced a different direction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what do you look for like in a house? Like, I mean, or what in a living space? I mean, what are things that have caught your eye over the years?
I have found that I need light. I need a lot of light. One of our moves is we only lived in the place 18 months because I felt so claustrophobic I couldn't handle it. The main window faced north, and it didn't have central air, so we had to put in an air conditioner in the one of two south facing windows, and I did not thrive. So yeah, I need light. It just has to be a sense of comfort. I have found as we've progressed in houses that I like more of an open concept or the ability to say, you're in the kitchen and you can talk to someone in the living room, or, I don't like being shut off in the kitchen because then it's not fun. Other than that, and we got to have room for our king bed and our massive TV. So
there's like a weird term for like if you have a window that faces your front yard but also looks all the way through to your backyard, like that mirrors it, right? Like a shotgun window or something like that.
Oh, I never heard of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the term is so like you can fire a shotgun and you'd go straight through one window and to the other. We were neighbors for a while, a block away.
Yeah.
And the people who've purchased that house since you have done a lot of work, but not finished it. So like they put up a different chunk of fence, but then didn't do anything to finish the fence.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss when you and Scott lived there because like, I didn't have to look at unfinished projects. I already look at that enough in my own home.
I actually just got a message response from her when we first found out we were moving back. I messaged her, Facebook messaged her because I wanted to know if there was any possibility she was thinking of selling the house, because I would move back there in a heartbeat. It's the one place I have found that I would stay at. When you speak of moving, I would stay in that house. I loved that house. So
you reached out to the new owners. That's very intriguing. And I mean, what did she say?
She said no. It's the kind of house, and I told her I understood perfectly what she meant. It's a house that it just welcomes you, and you are so relaxed when you're in it, and you're so at home. It's just crazy. I mean, that's why I would have loved to have gone back. And I know I do stuff like that. And Scott always shakes his head and he's like, why would you message her? I said, you never know until you ask. That is my motto in life.
I mean, why not? I know plenty of people who will go back to their childhood home and knock on the door and just ask to see inside.
Yeah, and she told me when we're back and settled that I could come over and take a look at what she's done. So
Oh,
I'm
well, there you go.
excited. She took
That's actually been a dream of mine for a while. There's one of my childhood homes I really want to see the inside of again,
Yeah.
but I have yet to build up the courage to just go over there and knock and say hi.
Just do
I
it,
used to live
man.
here. You don't know me. Can I come in?
You want me to pose as your mom and say, "Oh, I raised Tucker here. We wondered if we could see."
Well, I could just have my real mom
Well,
do
yes,
that.
you could. Your mom
And
would.
then it wouldn't be a lie. It would be the absolute
True.
truth.
I bet she would love it.
Yeah.
That would be funny. We actually got to see the inside of the first house we bought, which was a little English cottage, and we loved that place, but it was a total money pit. And our dog, Scooter, he ran away when we were down. Oh, no, this is a different time. Sorry. He likes to run away. We call him Scoodini because he can get out of anything. He ran away and he went to the neighbors. There's a shared driveway and he ran to the neighbors because not that we had him when we lived there, but we went to visit them because they have a dog that he likes to play with. And so he knew the route. And it's on 9th Street and 15th Avenue. He runs away and he always runs away on the sidewalks. So funny. Takes the sidewalks. And he ended up at Terry and Naomi's, our friend's house, and they weren't home, but the people that live in the house that we owned saw him. So they called us and they said, "Oh, we have your dog." I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness. What's your address?" And they told me, and I said, "Wait, I know this address. How is Scooter at that address?" And so they invited us in and we got to see them, what they redid, which is what I always dreamed of. It was gorgeous. It was very fun.
Oh, that's a fun little story to also tell you about. Like, dogs remember.
They do. He remembers. We just have to say Mochi and he perks up and looks around, and that's his friend.
In the early 2000s, my dad was in Bethesda, Maryland with my mom doing a cancer treatment, and a couple came to my door. I was watching our house, which is the house I grew up in, the house my mother grew up in, and my grandfather built in the late 50s.
Oh.
So we're the only people who've lived here. But this couple knocked on the door and said, "We used to live here." Like, the husband, like, as a son, when I was a kid, and could we just, take a look around your house?
What?
And I said, "Well, no, that's not possible. Like, there's no way you lived here." And they're like, "Yeah, we lived here in 1959 and and like, oh, there used to be a tree out front." And I said, no. And then I shut the door and I called my mom and she goes, "Call the police right now, because clearly somebody is trying to gain entry into this house who, if you were confused, right? If you were confused about what house it might be, and then the person at the actual home told you, no, that can't be possible. And you'd be like, "Oh, this is such and such on 9th Street, right?"
Right.
But I remember thinking, like, what a great way for people to try and trick you into getting into your home.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so it's a good thing you've got like an actual personal relationship with some of these people. And, for us, it's a unique situation since I'm the third generation inside this house.
Yeah.
But not everyone can say that. In fact, most people can't say that.
Yeah.
And so,
not these days.
I can say I'm the second person to live in my apartment.
Are you?
Yeah.
Someone would come in and say, "I used to live here. Could I see the apartment again?"
Back in the 80s before it existed.
No.
Have you ever left something behind, or like the wet bandits in Home Alone? Like, do you have something that you've marked in every place you've dwelled?
Like Zorro?
Yeah.
No, we should have. But
I would love it if Lori's calling card was every time she moved out of a house, she just ran all the faucets. Like the wet bandits.
Oh, God. No, I should put a little Silverback somewhere. If I could say, there's a stamp of a Silverback in this spot that shows you I lived here.
Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, though, but I remember too, part of the reasons for relocating to the cities was Scott really wanted to pursue some acting opportunities out there. Is he still looking to do that? Obviously, we haven't talked about this yet on this show, but Lori is the sole remaining founder of Theater B that had yet to appear on JJ Meets World. So we now have collected all of the Theater B founders on JJ Meets World, and Theater B is incredibly stoked that the Horviks are coming back to this community. So I am not complaining at all. But
Yeah.
a large part of it was Scott really wanted to get some professional acting work out in the cities. So how much of that is still part of the plan?
It's not really. Unfortunately, Scott likes to move where he gets comfortable and then he does the next step, that kind of thing. So it took a little while for him to get the whole thing about working remotely because he kept his job in Fargo. So he was telecommuting. And so once he was comfortable with that, then he started auditioning and stuff. He did a fringe show and a show at Theater in the Round. And then the pandemic hit. So pretty much put a stop to all of that. So it's not.
That's too bad because he's such an amazing performer.
I know.
And
tell him that all the time, and he doesn't. He's like, oh, well, I don't know. And then we go to a show, and he says, oh, I could do that. That's his humble brag. Oh, I guess I could do that.
And speaking of humble brags, let's talk a little bit about actually who Lori Horvik is, and let's give you a chance to humble brag about your beginnings and where you find yourself today.
Oh gosh, it's been a crazy journey. You want my life story?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Wahpeton, so about an hour south of Fargo. I graduated from there, went to the junior college there just because I wanted to. See, I have evolved a lot in my life. I kind of traced my journey. I went to the North Dakota State School of Science, as it was called then, NDSSS, because I didn't want to take the really large classes like a science class with 300 people or math class or whatever. So I wanted to take my generals and get that out of the way. And so I started schooling there, and my actual what I was going to pursue was biochemistry. And my goal was to work on the first moon research station. I wanted to live on the moon.
That rules.
Yeah. I thought that would be really, really cool. And then I took organic chemistry at the same time that I rediscovered theater. And that became a problem. Biochemistry went by the way. And I found that what I really liked was the idea of the biochem and the study of it and all of that. But I liked the labs because we could interact, but I didn't like the solo stuff. I'm pretty much an introvert, but I like to have my little family around me, like my little group. So I don't have a huge, wide range of friends, but I do need people. So theater just dragged me in and took me on a ride. So I left that behind, and I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do, although deep in my heart I really knew I wanted to do theater, but I wanted to give it some time. So moved to Fargo, worked for a couple years, and then went back to school and did mass comm at North Dakota State. And then I said, okay, I can't deny this anymore, because I took all the theater classes when I was an undergrad, even though I wasn't a major. Took a bunch of them. And so I did my master's there, my MA at NDSU in theater. And then I wanted to teach. I always knew I wanted to teach. I love helping people. And that's kind of been a theme throughout. Like even when I was looking at biochem and doing the research on the moon and stuff, it was like to research a cure for cancer, or, something that would help society. And excuse me. So then I wanted to teach, and that was kind of at the transition moment where you used to be able to teach with an MA, like especially at junior colleges, that type of thing. And then they wanted an MFA, the terminal degree. So I worked for a couple of years again, and then I went to grad school. And luckily, I have a husband who just follows me wherever we go. He's so easygoing about that.
We love you, Scott.
He's so awesome. He's just like, okay. He wouldn't do these changes on his own, but I just drag him along.
He really is probably one of, if not the most chill person that I know.
He is. Till you get him mad, and then it's kind of scary. I don't know if you've ever seen him mad when he gets upset at someone. It's a little frightening.
I doubt I've seen him at full anger. I've seen him pissed off, but not enraged. And that would be scary. I think especially someone who doesn't normally act like that.
Yeah.
Once they get there, that things have gotten bad.
Oh yeah.
Right?
He yells, and it's like he's so loud, and it's just like, just okay. Luckily he hasn't been that way at me. So I haven't pushed him that far. So we went to grad school in DeKalb, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And funny story, when we were doing this, Scott was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, and again, he was going to pursue the acting. And at the time he was working radio, and just overnights and stuff at KLTA, Light Rock 105. And he was going to move into the city with a friend of ours from a show. And then I said, and I was going to live with this little old lady. I was going to rent a room in her house and help her out a little bit and go to grad school. And so we were going to kind of be apart. And there was a job opening that came up at a radio station in DeKalb. And I said, would you just apply? And he's like, yeah, and he had a monetary cutoff. And those days, okay, this is so funny. His cutoff was $16,000. And we thought that was so much money, But if he made less than that, he was going to go to Chicago. If it was more than that, then easy choice, we'd stay. And it ended up being right at 16. And he said, I think I'm going to go to Chicago and do that with Jeff. And I said, no, I really want you to come here. And that's when I knew, like, I couldn't do this and live with the lovely old lady. So he worked at B95 in DeKalb while I went to grad school. And it was great. I loved that he was there, and he really enjoyed working. It was a small station, and he made some really good friends. And he did the morning show. No, he didn't do the morning show. I can't remember. No, yes, he did, because he'd get done like at 2. And then I had a break kind of at that point because I was in theater and I was doing directing and stage management. So my stuff was more in the evening. So like between 2 and 3, we'd go work out every day and do stuff together. And it was great. And then we moved into Chicago. I got a job at the Goodman doing box office. And he was temping and kind of figuring out what he wanted to do. And then the job at NDSU, teaching theater, opened up, and it was kind of like, it was sort of my dream situation of, a smaller department doing all this stuff. And I thought the faculty was great and everything. So we moved back to Fargo, and I taught there for 18 years. It's kind of crazy. And I love the students. My colleagues were great. And that was when 2003, was it? I think, when we started Theater B.
Yeah, I think it was 3, because I think I met you guys in 04.
Yeah, it was 0203.
Okay, yeah. So I think by the time I met you guys, you were on your second season.
Yeah, I took a sabbatical, and we started B, and the rest is history with that. I mean, it's still going. David and Scott always tell the story that we're just going to do one show, Dinner with Friends, and they they were like, yeah, we'll do a show and then we're good to go. And Carrie and I are like, oh, we can do this and this, and we're gonna do a season. Oh, we're gonna keep going. And they're just like, oh, okay.
Yep. And now we have our own theater in Moorhead, Minnesota, and we're on season, I forget what season number we're on right now.
God, it's like 17 or 18.
17, I think. 16 or 17 or 18, something like that. Yeah. I've been with the company for 13 years.
Okay.
So I think it's probably, I became a member, I became an ensemble member in 2007. Yeah. It was the start of that 13-year count. So
if you're saying it was did you start with the first year at Main Avenue?
The first play I was in was at Main Avenue, which was Joined to the Head. So I was doing stuff with you guys without being an ensemble member because the Mostly Men troupe was going on at that time.
Yep.
With Brad Delver and Matt Burkholder and Adam Harfield and Misty Teeters and Stacy and all sorts of people.
Yeah. That was our third season because we did a season at the Old Moose Lodge, which was awesome.
Yep.
And the second season we were transient. And then we got into Main Avenue Theater because of Dave Shear, our wonderful angel. So that's awesome. So yeah, then I left teaching after 18 years. I got very burnt out, doing theater and doing B and everything. And it's just, there's a lot of politics in education. I mean, I think it is with every job, no matter where you are. There's all kinds of other things that you have to deal with. I'd always tell people, I taught, and they're, oh, what do you teach? I said, theater. Oh, that's so fun. I go, well, yeah, most of the time. It's not just playing. And so I kind of took a break. I worked at Creative Kitchen for a year, which best store in the whole wide world. I love it. I had worked there previously, so I was able to come back and do that, and it was great fun. And then did some administrative work, and then we decided we'd come to Minneapolis. And I sort of fell into my job here after temping for a bit. I work for a railroad union. It's called the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way. Sounds like a cult.
What's it called? It does. That sounds like an ancient secret society.
Or a Christian rock band, called the
AJ, do you still belong to a secret society?
I sure do. I belong to a couple of secret societies. Yep.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Lori, sorry to interrupt.
No. I'm intrigued.
Well, does the railroad union have like handshakes and stuff?
No, I don't know.
They don't have like a secret, like a ring you can wear
and stuff. I just work for the union in the office. I don't go to the meetings like the lodge meetings or anything. I do go to the Joint Protective Board meetings, which is like, it's every 4 years. It's like a big gathering. But no, that's interesting. But I imagine that working for them. So
a lot of the breakout sessions at this big meeting include how to keep hobos off of your cars, what happens if a hobo gets on your car, and also identifying tagging.
Yeah, like spray paint removal.
Actually, there's so many railroad unions you would not believe, but I work for the one that maintains the roads or the tracks and the bridges and the right of way. So it's maintenance of way is what the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way. So they work and protect the tracks and the bridges and make sure everything's working well.
This is something that really surprised. So I worked out at the Western Entertainment, aka WeFest Festival for many, many years. And in my job as the head of camping, one of the things is we have 2 campgrounds that have train tracks that go through the campground. And so they would normally give us like a 10 minutes heads up, like, hey, there's going to be a train coming through. So we could do things like shut down the walkway paths and just ensure that people are safe.
Yeah.
And at one point in my later years out there, they said, listen, we can't do this anymore because we now are covered by Homeland Security. And it's very important to this organization that we that we maintain good relationship with governing bodies and stuff like that. And they said, and Homeland Security would not like us to be sharing our schedule times. So to give you like a heads up, and I'm sure that there are people out there who've tried to do some pretty awful things involving our railway system. But I thought, people forget that the train system out there carries so much stuff that a disruption on the rails will cause a huge backup, like supply and demand and just getting things from point A to point B. And so, even though you see semis on the highway all the time and we're working on giant pipelines to do stuff, the railway industry is really the one that's getting stuff from point A to point B the most.
It is. It's pretty amazing. And I never thought about that, like with the schedule and stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was, and it was really fun to talk to the people from. I can't remember what line it was that ran through there, but it was interesting because they'd give me all of these numbers of things that I didn't know. They'd be like 108 car, like something non-retractable, and I was like, oh, okay. I just know ha ha is like the horn comes through, and then I get out of the way.
Yep, exactly. Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Lori, I want to compliment you on a piece of theater that has changed my life forever, which was your performance in Rabbit Hole.
Oh my gosh.
I think about that at least once a week, and specifically the scene where you're in the bedroom of your son who's died in this tragic accident, and you're like touching a stuffed animal, and it was just the emotion out of that thing was amazing. It's just such an amazing performance in that role, and kudos to you.
Well, thank you. That show was so incredible to do. I mean, not only because the cast was amazing. I mean, we worked so well together, and my scenes with Tucker were so, God, I loved those scenes, especially the lemon bar scene was just,
Yeah. Well, and one of my favorite audience reaction moments is from that show because, those of you who aren't in the area, Theater B, we have a small black box theater. So it's typically seats between 80 and 100 people. It's fairly intimate compared to most theaters.
We're pretty
so
close.
When, you're right there, the audience is right there. They're just feet away from you. And oftentimes, if the more silver someone's hair might be, the more likely they might be to just talk out loud during the show because they're so invested. Yep. And I remember doing that show one night, and the scene happens where I walk in and I hear this old woman go, "Oh, he is such a sad boy." Just to silence the audience when she says that. And I loved it, right? I loved it. It didn't bother me at all. It meant that she was completely invested in the show. And that was such a good show. That was when I still had hair. And
so you could play a young man.
I could still play a young man at that time. And that was what kicked off the series of me playing characters who had killed children.
Oh.
Right. Well, and for context, Rabbit Hole is a play about a family whose young son has died in a car accident.
He ran out to the street, and a young man hit him.
And Tucker plays the young man who is driving the car. And what I like is it's not about the accident itself; it's about the aftermath. It's it's almost a year after.
I think it's within a year.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's after all of the dishes have been returned from people who dropped off food. It's when things are, when people are expecting life to kind of get back to normal, and the fact that like life will never be normal again. And these are wounds that heal but leave scars. And the show is so good. And you guys did such an amazing job with it. Oh, it was so good.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because the writing, wasn't that David Lindsay Abair?
Yep.
Yep. I kept waiting for the kick because he writes really bizarre stuff. And so this was the first one that was really pretty straight, as far as a straight drama. And but it was so incredibly written. It was so easy to memorize. Like Tucker, I think about the lemon bar scene because I don't think I ever studied that scene. It was just in rehearsal, and every line seemed natural and normal, and it was so incredibly written.
Yeah.
Beautiful script, and
That kind of subject matter is really easy to be overwrought with, right? Like it could be
yeah.
really easy to overwrite
Have you
that
seen the
show.
movie?
Not yet. I actually have it on DVD on the shelf behind me
Yeah,
right now.
it's a little
Um,
much.
that's with it's Aaron Eckhart and Nicole Kidman, right?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a little much. They do go a little maudlin sometimes, but one time I was judging a theater competition that they hold annually. It's the American College Theater Festival, and these two college students did a scene from Rabbit Hole. And first of all, I'm like, oh, please don't do that. But they were so sad. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, no, honey. No, 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 no. You know,
Lori, as someone who has taught theater for a very long time, you would
yeah,
be well placed to do this. It seems to me that, and I remember this when I first started acting too, young actors, especially ones that want to be taken seriously,
yeah,
we sort of assume that we need to either get angry or sad
yeah,
on stage real fast and real intense.
yep.
And for some reason that is I think we see movies and stuff and we see these performances where an actor, a character gets really emotional and we're moved by it and we go, oh, that must be but what acting is. What's your theory on that? Why do you think we go there first?
Because it feels good.
Yeah.
I always say that. That was the other thing I was going to touch on about Rabbit Hole. It has this trap of the maudlin and of, there's also anger there and there's all kinds of stuff that you can go for. But really, you have to, for actors, we feed on emotion, and that, we feel like we're really successful when we get there and get ourselves there. And JJ, I think one of the reasons you felt like I was so connected to the performance is because there were two really important factors to that show that drew me into my being able to connect with the role. One was that I'm trying to remember what year it was. I don't quite remember, but Torin, our daughter, was alive. But she wasn't in like high school yet or anything.
When we
So
did Rabbit Hole, she was still
yeah.
a little kid. She
Was
was
she
still,
little? Okay.
oh, she was still very little.
So I could connect to their son through Torin. And one time we were rehearsing, and I think it was the scene, it might have been the scene with you. And oh yes, because there's a script, a stage direction where she's supposed to cry, which I hate. Um, but I imagine Torrin running out in the street and getting hit, because we do that all the time as actors. We kill off our family members all the time. it's sad but true. It's what we do. And so it took me there and it got me there, but then it doesn't work again. You use that, and young actors don't know, you use that as a tool. So okay, I got there. So now I just have to remember to be available to that feeling and wherever it takes me. It doesn't have to take me to literal tears. You can break down in so many ways. You could just break down and totally zone out, and just shut down. So I had to remind myself I didn't have to get there all the time. And then the other thing, and this is really sad, very sad story. When we got married, our best friends, their little boy was our ring bearer, and he was 3. His name was Andy. His dad was our um, best man. And so we got married on a Friday, and then we went to the cities for our honeymoon. Woohoo! And this is how unadventurous we were at the time. We stayed here. Let's see, we were here Sunday, Monday. And Monday night, we looked at each other. We were kind of laying there and we're like, what do you want to do tomorrow? I don't know. What do you want to do? Should we go home? Okay. So we went home. And on Wednesday, Andy was sick. His mom, Stacy, was telling us about, he was just sick. And he got worse and worse. They took him to the hospital because he was complaining and he died. he had meningitis and died that
Oh.
day. It was so incredibly, I'm kind of being affected right now. And I remember the moment when they had a little baby too. He was 9 months old, Blake. And when Stacy and her mom were, and I think her sister were in the room, and Andy had just passed, and Carter came and he gave me Blake. So, like, just kind of basically take the baby, I'm going in. And because we came to the hospital right away. And when the door opened, I saw them holding him. And I will never, ever, 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 ever in my life forget that moment. And I'm holding Blake, and they're just, this little unit around him. And I use that feeling, that that beautiful connection that I saw in that show, because it was, I mean, it's exactly what I imagined the parents did in that show. But I couldn't let it take me all the way there, because then you're just a slobbing mess. It's just terrible, and it's a very, very sad story. Um, and but they made it through, and so part of the thing that I used, and which many, many people don't have the ability to do, is Carter and Stacy were my model for the couple in the play and how they were afterward, because you don't get to see that. And it's not like you think, where they're just walking around all moony and all the time. It's not like that. It's, you're moving forward, and there's always this blanket over you of grief, but it's not, it sometimes will drag you down, but we do have humor, and we do have moments of happiness. We have all these things, and we move and we function and we interact with people, and you move forward. It just doesn't go away, but it it finds a place. I guess I'll put that way.
I'm
Ah,
a
sorry.
firm believer in the fact that like the stages of grief,
Yeah.
the theory, and then the practice behind that is because there's proof in the pudding with a lot of these things, and they may come in a different order than you imagine,
Yeah.
but at one point or another, these are things that you experience, and individual human beings can sometimes go through those in an hour, like all 7 stages, like in an hour.
Yeah.
And there are some people who it takes years, and they
Yeah.
may get caught on stage 4 and live in stage 4 for a long time before they move to 5, but then they're only in 5 for a brief moment. And anyone who tells you that like grieving has to be done in a particular way, I think is just absolutely full of it. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a cliche, and it's not the same for everyone. And you can't expect people to perf- perform. Ugh, we're talking about acting, but to act the same way as someone else. I mean, they take it different ways, and you have to try to. One of the things that we do as performers is try to capture a way that can bring our audience to the heart of it without um, damaging ourselves. Can I say that? I think that's the other thing I was going to talk about was um, there's this huge thing. I mean, it's been since Stanislavski and Chekhov and all that, of where you take, you go back and you find these emotions and you use them, and you get to this place. It's about using the past emotions, and that never ever worked for me. Um, excuse me. Um, it was something that there, and maybe it's me, but I'm a pretty emotional person. I mean, I think Tucker can attest to that. I go all over the chart, just
Well,
in
you're a
real
theater
life.
person.
Yeah, I'm a theater person, and I'm pretty empathetic. I mean, if I see someone doing something, I tend to start feeling stuff, or going through something. I feel it. And if I took myself there all the time, and brought up these past emotions all the time, A, I would seriously need some big time therapy. And B, it comes to a point where it doesn't work anymore because you cannot just keep dredging and dredging and dredging and dredging. So when I went to grad school, I was really lucky because I had done the MA at NDSU at NDSU. At Northern Illinois, I was able, as a director, to take some of the acting classes, and they taught what's called the Meisner method, and it's named after Sanford Meisner. And it takes elements of Stanislavski, but um, it it removes you one step from that actual event, and that's what I love. To me, it's like a ping pong game where Stanislavski, it's like you're putting all this stuff out there and you're working so hard, you're generating it from inside. But with Meisner, you're taking everything in. It's really about observing, and it's a ping pong game. It's like, okay, here's how I feel. I get myself emotionally ready to enter a scene, but I don't go to that place because, of course, it's supposed to go there during the scene. Um, and so I enter just ready to be available to whatever happens. And then whatever the other person or people are giving me, I respond to that. And I take that and I give it back. And it's a back and forth. And it's what real life is. Um, and it works magically. It changed the way I perform and how I direct and everything. And to me, it's so much truer and also very, very much, it's very much more healthy. Um, yeah, it's great. It's amazing.
Oftentimes, when actors approach things with, say, like a method actor, right? Someone who's going to go and really try to actually create in the physical world a lot of the conditions that their character is going to go through, so that
Yep.
they feel like they can empathize or have some sort of mental reference. And I understand it to that point, but I think so many actors really misunderstand exactly what an actor is actually doing when they're on stage and they're as a character. You know, a lot of people come into it with this notion that, oh, my job as the actor is to actually go away. Like,
Yeah.
Tucker is not here. This other character is here. And I've learned that that's in my opinion, that's bogus. That's
Yeah.
you are never gone. You're always there.
Yeah.
You're never actually disappearing.
I'm
You
sorry, the
shouldn't.
character, I mean, you're playing the character. It's part of you.
Right, exactly. And if you were to go away, you would just stop acting, right? Like the
Mhm.
character needs you to be there as the battery.
Mhm.
And you're not there to I think you're not there to disappear and create this new thing. You're there to shove like your essence through the cheesecloth of the character that was written on the page for you.
Oh, I like
Right.
that.
And
Yeah.
you're sort of making this new thing. When Daniel Day-Lewis is on set and he's having everyone call him Mr. President, right, for Lincoln,
Uh-huh.
Daniel Day-Lewis is still there. He's always there. He's always aware of what's going on. He is in complete control. It's not that he is losing himself. He is just so good at his craft that when you watch it, you get the illusion that Daniel Day-Lewis is gone
Yeah.
and that in front of you is the president. And
Yeah.
that's what real acting is. And I think people think they actually literally have to lose themselves. They have to actually adopt the identity of the character. And in my opinion, that's bad acting. Even if
Mhm.
the result looks great, if I didn't see everything that went into it, I know that they could have gotten the same result without all of that personal torture.
It is. It's personal torture. Thank you for saying that because it's so true. I mean, I cannot imagine doing a show like Rabbit Hole and losing myself in that every single night. I mean, imagine, we run 3, 4, 5 weeks, but to do it 8 days a week for a Broadway run, for however many weeks or months or, I, you couldn't function. I mean, it's just, there's a very strong lure to that. And it's a high when you hit this emotional point with a character that you're just like, got it, nailed it, boom. Um, but to continually do that to yourself is mentally and emotionally damaging, I think. And it makes me afraid, especially when people use it like in very personally traumatic situations. Like I did a show once. It was just a one act, but it was in my MFA. And part of the situation was this little girl had been abused by her friend's dad. And I didn't find out until like 3/4 the way through rehearsal, like this girl had been abused. And I'm like, oh, okay, we got to stop. We got to talk about this. I said, because if it ever, ever brings something up to you, we have to stop. We can't go there because there are triggers. And luckily it wasn't the same type of situation, but and you don't know what'll happen when that's triggered. You cannot control yourself emotionally when that's triggered. That there's no way you can keep yourself online on doing stuff. I mean, you might attack that other person. We were doing an exercise once where it's one of the things you do in Meisner. It's called an activity, and you bring something that brings up emotion that you do, so that you're busy doing something, and then the other person comes in and interacts with you, and you just use them plus your situation to keep this emotion. And I did it. So my niece, my little niece, I said she's missing. So the only thing I did to prep was photocopy her picture onto some sheets of paper, and then I was going to write the information during the activity. And I started to do it, and my friend came in, and we were doing the scene, and he took my markers that I was working with, and I shoved the thing over, almost threw the table over, and all I did was hear my teacher going, "Don't hit him." I heard him say it because he knew, like, it was so real to me. When you can do an activity really well, it feels great because you're in that moment. But he says, remember, you are always there. And it's true. You're acting, And I had a partner in a scene once. We'd never rehearsed it. And he said, before we went up to do the scene, he said, I really want to hit you in this scene, because he's supposed to slap her face. I said, no, we haven't rehearsed it. We haven't done anything. And he did it.
Ooh.
And you don't know how you're going to react when it happens. I like to think nowadays, if somebody did that, I would like kick them in the balls. But at the time, I did the lines, and luckily the lines were, "Get out of here. I never want to see you again," kind of thing. But I was crying so hard, and I screamed at him, and everyone in that room knew that he did something. They didn't know if it was a slap or what, but they knew he did something he wasn't supposed to do, because my reaction was so strong. And afterward, the professor talked to him, gave him a real dressing down, and he wanted to do the scene. He was a TA in an acting class, and he said, I really want to do this for my class. I said, absolutely not. I don't trust you. I will never go on stage with you again. And
yeah, that's a huge violation.
I never worked with him again. I did not cast him because I didn't trust him. And that's huge on stage. You have to trust that the person on stage will do what you're expecting. And if they go off, on something or whatever, fine. You can play and do stuff like that. I mean, that's the essence of acting. It's unexpected. And I've done stuff on stage where I don't necessarily do what I normally do, but nothing that physically harms that person.
I always think there's enough tension already for the worry that something will and can go wrong at any minute. A flat could fall down, or a sound cue is played in the wrong spot. There is enough of that already without having to add an extra layer by being like, well, this other human being, I'm here and I've made this vow to create the same thing that we've been working on for the last 10 weeks. Do the same thing that I'm expecting. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's trust. It's all about trust on stage, because otherwise you can't deal with those other things that happen. I don't know if David ever told you this. Our favorite thing is to tell the story of, oh my God, now I've lost the name of the show. It's the one about the 2 cup. Oh, with the blue wine.
Oh, you're talking about
Vino Veritas.
Vino Veritas.
Yeah, and we
which I also have the film of.
Yeah, I actually haven't watched that one.
I can hook you up.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, it's good.
It good? Okay.
But as a quick tangent here, I like your version better because that is a script that felt like it was written specifically for the Wintersteins and Horviks to perform.
I know.
It was eerie how how it was written for you guys.
Yeah, and somebody said, I can't remember who it was. They were like, "Oh, that'd have been fun to try it and like switch the couples." And I'm like, "Oh no, 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 no. This was us."
No,
You
how it
know.
was cast
And
perfectly.
same with Dinner with Friends. It's like we were our characters, so funny. But
Did Matthew direct Vino? I can't remember. Who directed
no,
Vino, or was it Brad?
no, it wasn't Brad.
Was it Matt?
No, he did
Was it
Rabbit Hole.
Was it Pam?
Yes, it was Pam. It was
Okay.
Pam. Yeah. So we had a private audience for one of the shows. Like they bought out the house and they had like a holiday party thing. So they were drinking a lot. And during the show, they started talking to us. Like you could hear them just like, there's a part where I accused my friend of sleeping with my husband, and you heard them like, oh, and oh my God, what did they do? That kind of thing. And it was kind of crazy during the first part, and David ran off stage after the end of that act, and he was like, oh my God, he was just freaked out. And I, of course, had worked on shows at the Harwood Prairie Playhouse, which, if you don't know, people love to talk to the audience. It's always a bedroom farce, and it's always people running in and out of doors and trying to sleep with each other and that kind of thing. And the audience is usually of a certain age, like you say, more silver in the audience, and they always talk. Sometimes it's because they can't hear and they'll ask their friend, what did they just say? Kind of thing. But they will talk to the actors. And so I knew that. But in this show, David had never done a show like that. And so he was just like, oh my God, what's going on? And we get to act 2, and they are insane. Like they just, it was, they got to this one scene where, like, what do you want to do when you die, or what do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be this bug on a windshield. And I had this great monologue. And right at the cool part of it, you heard this, and someone had popped a bottle. It was right before intermission. And it was like, I really wanted to turn the audience and go, really? It was just, and at the end, Scott and my character, we come to this place because we've had a difficult time, and we come back together, and we're like, and what happens after tonight, or something like that? And you hear from the audience, sex. It's like, and it's this really serious moment, and we both just looked at each other and just held that moment for a second. It was like, Jesus Christ, you just, oh. And, it was a really beautiful show, but they were just nuts. So that was pretty crazy. That was fun.
That's live theater. That's one of the things that is so amazing about live theater is every night you don't know what's going to happen that night.
That is for sure.
I love when to me, I love listening to an audience to be like, what do I expect of this audience from here on out? And when I did Hand to God with Theater B, I knew within the first 20 minutes what type of audience we were working with that particular night, because they would react to things in a way. Like if they laugh at some lines that are making fun of Christianity, I'm like, okay, this is a group of people who knew what they were getting into. But then there was like the night when there were the 2 nuns who came and sat in front row center. And I remember there's a scene where I'm like, my character is sort of lecherous towards Missy Teeters, and I get too close to her and she backs away, and I take a step forward, and I heard one of the nuns say, he better not kiss her. And I remember that was probably the most I've ever been taken out of a show in my entire life, where I was like, uh-oh, I got to say something else, but I don't know what it is, because these nuns are really freaking me out right now.
Yep.
Loved it.
Oh, yeah. They're right there too. That's the thing. I mean, I think that's the joy of what we do with Theater B is, the setup that we have now, the theater that we have now, it's a little further away, not a lot, but, and I haven't performed in that space, but I think, I don't know, Tucker, have you done a show there?
Yeah, because we just did Hamlet. We did Hamlet here, and
that's right. Duh,
it's
I was there.
It's actually it still feels really nice and intimate. It
Oh,
still
good.
feels like they're right there in front of you. And actually, as you were talking about audience members interrupting the show, one of the last performances of Hamlet we were doing, it was like it's towards the end of the show, and I've got the skull in my hand, right, and I'm about to start the
Oh no.
I knew him, Horatio monologue.
Yeah.
And I go, alas, poor Yorick. And in the audience, I hear do 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 do, and someone's cell phone starts going off right
Yep.
there. And then it's it's a minute of, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, and like you're shuffling around for their purse, and they can't find it. And then of course it gets louder as they take the phone out of the purse. And I didn't pause. I just kept going. Right. And those moments still happen, but you just get through it. You just get through. There's nothing you can do except to keep going. And so you have to stay in the moment. The opening night of Hamlet, in the sword fight scene at the end, my sword broke in half.
Oh no.
Or no, I'm sorry. The Monika's sword broke in half. The one that was supposed to be poisoned at the tip. It snapped in half and the blade went flying into the audience and almost hit someone. And we just had to keep going. So I fought the rest of that scene with a broken sword with almost no blade on it. And you just get through it and you just keep going.
Yep, you do. That's the fun thing. It's just whatever happens.
And JJ, I mean, the thing is that with live improv, that's like live theater on steroids.
Yeah.
Because all the safety that the actors have on stage is gone, right? They don't have lines that are memorized and a costume that they've been working on and movements that they've been working on, right? That safety net is gone, right?
Right, but you get something else in return. You get wire work. You get a wire harness instead, because I don't have to rely on those things like other people making their cue, and I don't have to rely on a set piece or a sword, because I'm, if I don't have a sword in front of me, I don't have a sword to break,
Yeah.
And so it's very freeing in that sense. But there's a reason why a great improviser every now and then will still go and do a scripted show and be accountable for hitting their mark every single time. Because it's good to know that there is this other, like it takes a different set of muscles. Your biceps and your triceps are both muscles in your arm, but they do drastically different things.
Yeah. Oh, improv terrifies me.
Lori, I think you would be someone who would excel at improv, but I can totally understand the fear towards it. I think if you did it for long enough, the first time you got that genuine laugh in front of a crowd, I think you'd get addicted to it.
Oh, I know I would, but having to get there, because in the moment, I'm one of those people that in the moment, I can't necessarily come up with the right thing, or now that I'm getting a little older, finding that one word, like I couldn't remember the title of Vino Veritas, it's like, what's that thing called? But I think what's awesome about it is that you do have even the trust on steroids, that the others in there will take stuff and go with it. And you can trust that they're gonna back you up or catch you or whatever, but B, they won't take it somewhere else that they want to go. They'll go with it. And I think that would be really fun.
I think the only form of performance art that I'm absolutely terrified of ever doing is stand-up comedy.
Oh,
to me, that's the scariest, most dangerous as far as your emotions, because like JJ, in improv, you've got scene partners and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is just to make it up right there. The stand-up comedian goes on stage and they're supposed to have pre-written everything, right? Rehearsed it and everything. And then they're supposed to make you just lose your mind with laughter. So the stakes are so high that the pressure of having to make an audience laugh is so tremendous for a lot of people. Which is why a lot of people stay away from improv. It's not that you are making it up. It's that there's this pressure to be funny.
That's exactly it. That's what scares me about it. And I know I'm funny, but it's a situational funny and in common stuff. And that's what improv is. But, and that people are afraid to sometimes just let it kind of go where it goes, depending on what kind you're doing,
Lori, have you ever seen the show Trust Us, This Is All Made Up?
No. What is
See, that JJ lent me a DVD of this once that it changed my opinion on improv forever. I mean, I already liked improv at that point, but I had never seen improv done at that sort of level of true mastery, right? And I'm not, obviously we all knew Whose Line Is It Anyways, which, those were really good performers and that was fun. But this was something entirely different. JJ, do they still produce the show?
They do. So, in fact, so it's TJ Jagodowski and Dave Pasquazi, who are two really well-known Chicago actors. They've been in Sonic commercials and movies and stuff like that. And these two guys have been doing a show at the Improv Olympic and then taking one weekend a month to go to the Barrow Street Theater in New York. And just recently, like within the last couple of months, I think I read that Dave Pasquazi said he's tired of two-man improv. He goes, it's amazing, we're making it up every single night. He goes, but I'm sick and tired of making it up. Like the show's been running for almost 20 years.
Oh wow.
And when I first bought a ticket to it, I remember the guy describing it as poetry, and I thought, yeah, whatever, you wank. And afterwards I totally understood what this guy was talking about, because it is just seamless how these two guys create all of these characters on stage and get you emotionally involved in what's going on. In fact, Tucker, they have a Vimeo channel with like 25 more professionally taped versions of their setup. So
God, you shouldn't have told me that, JJ. There's so much I have to do today. I can't sit down and watch all of those now, which might be what I have to do.
I know, and it's subscription based too. So like you got to support their art, which is even better.
Imagine that. Well, you guys, I can't wait till we can go and see this kind of stuff again and do this kind of stuff. And yeah.
I had a theory that came to me last night while I was on the commode because I ate a whole jar of pickles and it caused some nighttime problems. But I was thinking about how right now I would not question the cost of seeing a live performance. And let me explain. I think that there was a fundamental shift in the 1990s to audiences. And once cable television reared its head and you could watch stand-up specials and PBS was doing more with broadcasting live theater, people didn't value live theater in the same way. So in the 60s, you went to a coffee shop to watch a stand-up show, not going there and saying, I need to be entertained, but because that was your form of social, like a social outlet.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden in the 90s, we started questioning the amount of money we were paying. And certainly by the 2000s, when they're asking $200 a ticket to see a Broadway show, you have now created something that is its own monster, which is an audience that expects a return on investment for their ticket.
Yep.
And I think that was a horrible, I can't tell you the number of times I have been to a show where it's like, where they have to win me in the first 5 minutes, or I've kind of turned to be like, well, that was a waste of money. That was a waste of time. Using the word waste is part of it.
Yep.
And I think it just got worse and worse and worse. I can't tell you the number of times I have walked out on stage at a show where someone paid $20 for a ticket and they sat there with their arms folded, already angry that they are there. And I want to be like, well, so now my goal is to win you over so that you feel like you spent your $20 in a good form. Luckily, I think most of us do that, and that person changes their attitude, but it infected the general public. But the pandemic has flipped the script on that, and all of a sudden now somebody who maybe only goes and sees a play a year at most, or only sees a stand-up show when they're in Las Vegas for a conference, are going to seek out these live performances that they were kept from. And they became sort of docile, expecting this to always be there so that they could reject it if they wanted and find an excuse of like, there's a James Bond marathon on. I don't want to go see Mamma Mia at FMCT. And now they are craving it. They need it in the worst way. And I am just hoping and praying that the post-pandemic audience is going to be something that we've never seen before in our lifetime. It's going to be a brand new type of audience who is so hungry that they are going to see a show and then buy tickets for the next night on their way out. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Yeah, and I think,
so.
JJ, you're right, totally along those lines. And I think one thing that's really happened too is that, a general audience really conflates any show with mass media, which mass media has this ability to basically monetize the end product to recoup costs that live theater just does not have, right? Because live theater is about audience members being there, butts in seats, watching it live, which means it's very, very difficult to get to a mass audience, which is what you need to be able to recoup costs. So people really, if they're used to paying $10, $12, $15 for a ticket to go to a movie, and then they have to pay $200 for a live show, to them, they're just going, well, I'm just sitting in a seat just like I would over there. Why does this cost any different? But what it takes for that business to actually, get even again and hopefully make some money is just, it's a totally different scenario, which is why most theaters in this country are nonprofits. Because there's just not really an easy mechanism to make a good profit unless you are in, a crazy huge market with a show that's going to attract, just thousands and thousands of people and blah, 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 blah. But hey, good luck being a method actor trying to pull that off in the middle of it.
Yeah, as musicals, yeah, you probably can. But yeah, straight show, it's much harder. I hope it's that way. I really, really do. I hope it's not people saying, well, I've been doing just fine what I'm doing. But I think it's going to be that the craving for social interaction that's going to help us. And I hope theater jumps on that immediately. I mean, I think everybody's dying to do stuff. So they'll be out there and doing it, because if we can capture that need for social interaction and the group activity and get people into our theaters, they're going to feel so good that, yes, they'll want to keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
I love that idea. Well, and on that note, Lori Horvik, what a wonderful chat we've had today. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Fabulous.
And
This was
I
great.
can't wait to see you face to face.
Yeah, yay, soon.
And hey, Lori, if people are looking to buy a condo in the Twin Cities area,
yeah.
where should they go to get some information about that? I hear there's a place opening up.
Yeah, there's a condo, and it's by the Stone Arch Bridge and right by the Guthrie when they start producing again, and the US Bank Stadium. So you get all kinds of stuff. Well, I think realtor.com is probably the easiest. It's 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's on the 7th floor, so you get this beautiful city view, and we love it. So
JJ, let's make that our new studio. We're ready for that, right?
I love it, but I tell you, the minimalist decorating, we're going to have to throw some more junk in there so that it looks cluttered.
JJ needs things to look like an Applebee's for him to become.
It really does.
Oh, I got stuff. I could do that for you. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. This was fantastic. I had so much fun.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. One time, Lori dropped the badge for the place she was working, and it just happened to be in front of my house. And so I walked it over to her house while I was walking my dogs. And I got real nervous that she didn't live in that house anymore. But it turns out she did.